In the verse of Firefly, people act like viruses. Sometimes viruses are helpful, and sometimes they try to murder you. Most of the interesting people in this TV series are trying to make their own way, make their own sustenance, and survive to the next day without help from anyone, and they are beating against the system like viruses. This is why I like the character Saffron in Our Mrs Reynolds. Yeah, she works with a team, like all smart or dangerous characters, but she gets her kicks from working alone. Her appeal as a character comes from her unwillingness to compromise or give in to the whim of anyone else, no matter how small. She can't even stand to hear people talk for a moment about friendship or the like, without a rude response. Our Mrs Reynolds is great television because it is about its characters' childlike reactions to their wacky adventures with someone who Malcolm might call a prairie harpy. Things get to be almost like a truly funny sitcom until the immortal transition to the ever-so-exciting final action sequence. My hat is off to Our Mrs Reynolds and the episode she lays waste to. Firefly has a knack for finding something in common between characters who would not otherwise be friends.
How drunk was I last night?
Well, I don't know. I passed out.
Our Mrs Reynolds is about strange bedfellows, but it also shows us the ability of Firefly to create unlikely relationships. Just look at Zoe and Wash.
Which represents his sovereignty.
That was you?
And he drinks of her wine. And then there's a dance with a joining of hands. The marriage ceremony of the Triumph settlers. You, sir, are newlywed.
What's the scene there about divorce?
And of course, here is one of the critical characters in this episode. She is feeling a bit apprehensive about Malcolm's predicament. Perhaps she is hoping to keep Malcolm for herself. Or perhaps she doubts the honesty of Our Mrs Reynolds here.
Really? Think you're the one to talk to her, sir?
The way I see it, me and her got one thing in common. We're the only ones who don't think this is funny.
She doesn't think this is funny either. What I like about Inara in this episode is that she does not fit neatly into the hero archetype. She ends up as the character who figures it all out and she struggles to save the day, blah blah blah. But she fails because she's just an ineffectual bystander. Her character in this episode is unnecessary for the main plot, but it is quite necessary for our enjoyment. This episode would be severely crippled if it were not for Inara's keeping the fire going and giving us some straight-up comic relief and petty intrigue.
I thought last night during the ceremony that you were pleased.
Well, yeah, last night I was. Had some mulled wine. Pretty girl gave me a hat made out of a tree. Nobody said I was signing up to having a hold.
Are you gonna kill me?
What? What kind of crappy planet is that? Kill you.
In the maiden's home, I heard talk of men who weren't pleased with their bride.
Well, I ain't them. And don't you ever stand for that sort of thing. Someone ever tries to kill you, you try to kill him right back. Look, wife or no, you are no one's property to be tossed aside. You got the right, same as anyone, to live and try to kill people. People that are... That's a dumb planet.
I don't mean to be rude and interrupt Malcolm's great speech, but I think we can call this cowboy feminism. Malcolm's clunky attempt at social activism here is a good example of the off-the-cuff brilliance displayed by characters in TV made by Mutant Enemy Productions. They never say quite what we expect them to, but there is always that element of familiarity.
Some ranches, if you're more for the outdoors. Near a week before we get there. We'll figure something.
I'd be a good wife.
Yeah, well, I'd be a terrible husband. You know, you're all making a big deal. I would appreciate it if one person on this boat would not assume that I'm an evil lecherous hump.
Nobody's saying that, sir.
Yeah, we're pretty much just giving each other significant glances and laughing incessantly. Is that cider? By the stroke. Yum. I'll get you a refill, honey.
She gets close to blowing her cover here. Why is she so forceful? Perhaps this has to do with the inflexibility of her act, and this is yet another foreshadowing of plot complications to come. This is another one of those character mistakes that sort of helps define someone. Are we supposed to start noticing a bit of artificiality in her statements? If I'm right about that, Whedon, Minear, and crew have done a good job nailing down details that both give the character 3 dimensions and also help us anticipate the next round of plot twists.
Have something to eat yourself, and I'm gonna go, Captain.
If you're done with supper, would you like me to wash your feet?
I like how Malcolm is both a hero and a regular person in Firefly. He's smart and observant.
Only let me have my wedding night.
But he makes mistakes that cost him dearly. He sticks to his principles like every good heroic captain. But every man has his price, like in this scene. In a moment of weakness, he lets fly a certain awareness of this god that he professes so much to hate.
I really wish it was that simple.
In a later episode, I suppose he'll have to own up to the fact that he threw away that cross necklace he kissed in the episode Serenity.
I never did meet anyone quite like Zoe. The first time we met, she actually frisked me.
This action scene is pretty standard fare. The catch is in who's doing it. This is one of the coolest characters of the entire Firefly series, in my humble opinion. And it is a joy to watch her act, as she usually does, with absolute zero hesitation, which gives the character a nice hard edge. This scene, like much of the rest of the episode, feels so breathless that we are tempted just to sit back and bask in the glow of this professional at work. A lot of Firefly characters can sometimes act that way, I suppose. This sequence after Malcolm wakes up and before they start worrying about the net is one of my favorites. Like a lot of informal ship meeting scenes, it illustrates Firefly's scrupulous tracking of the little subplots important to each character.
Your blushing bride was a plant. She took both of you out.
While the focus of the scene, Malcolm, deals with embarrassment and his struggle to put it behind him for very good reason, this sequence succeeds in whipping through a lot of explanations by simply letting the various characters chime in with their two bits.
Lips, huh?
Huh.
They make the scene look easy. But this scene involves a wildly entertaining array of motivations that make drama and filmmaking nuts like me watch this sequence over and over again.
Well, isn't that special?
Wash, how did...
Hey, I just got kicked in the head.
My man would never fall for that Chan Hua.
Most of my head wishes I had.
You guys don't understand.
Seems pretty simple from here. You were taking advantage of
I was the one being taken advantage of.
My apologies.
As we watch the next 4 minutes or so, look carefully at all the different motivations and other details that create a patchwork-style drama that makes Firefly feel so true to life, even as the group deals with ostensibly high-tech problems. Notice the feelings that Wash is trying to hide. Notice the technobabble spoken by Kaylee and Wash is almost, but not quite, over our heads. It all mixes together nicely, like a good Greek salad with feta cheese.
I'm comfy.
She didn't just lock it, she fused it to something, both entrances.
Well, why the big act? What was she after?
Besides molesting innocent captains?
You want to stow it? Preacher, we're in some peril here.
If she can fly this thing, why'd you take the shuttle?
Maybe she likes shuttles. Some people juggle geese.
She's a pro.
This is a masterful job of muck-up.
See how she crossed the dry feeds?
Yeah, huh?
Is this part of the scene necessary? No, but it's important for the episode's writers to underlie the danger with a little bit of technical detail. Firefly may not be particularly realistic. It doesn't really try to be realistic so much as authentic. People blather on about stuff we don't understand, but the important details are spelled out, and we can invest our interest in the rest of the scene, trusting that it will all make sense in the end. Quick scenes like this give the action that hard edge, that feel of authenticity that only comes from knowing what caused the problem, and it gives the situation a bit more personality.
Hey! It was your big makeout session that got us into this, sir.
I was poisoned.
You were drugged.
That's why I never kiss him on the mouth.
Well, what can you do?
Give us some time, we can get the Cortex and Navcom back online, at least see where we're headed.
What about steering?
What about stopping?
She humped us hard. I mean, we're gonna have to do a lot.
I'll do it. Doesn't help me to see where I'm going if I can't change course.
This girl really knows her ships.
It's not all she knows. She's well schooled.
Well, you mean the sedative? The good night kiss?
Well, I only hit my head, but Mal went through that. But no, I mean seduction, body language, signals. She's had training. As in companion. As in academy.
Our little Saffron's quite a wonder. I'm beginning to think she married beneath herself.
How do you know about the training?
She tried to seduce me too.
Really? Did she? Did you?
You don't play it, player. It was sloppy of her to try it, but I think she was in a rush.
But she had professional. So in my case, I mean, it was really. You would have kissed her too.
Wash didn't.
But she was naked and all articulate.
Okay. Everybody not talking about sex in here. Everybody else, elsewhere. They're coming!
How far out?
There are only 2 scenes featuring these villains. Are these scenes necessary? No. Are these characters cast very carefully? Seems so. I am very much impressed with the willingness of the makers of Firefly to put in throwaway details like these bit characters just to add a bit more texture to the action, and of course a break between scenes on the Serenity Bridge.
Clear as day. See, Vera? Dress yourself up, you get taken out somewhere fun.
I know that the gun's silence is normal in the vacuum of space, but it's cool anyway. I think that the episode's director is cutting back and forth between the silent gun and the loud disasters that it causes, with more on his mind than just realism. The episode is trying to catch us Star Wars viewers off our guard, and they succeed in keeping us interested in this standard action scene through a very simple trick with sound effects editing.
It's the first time, darling. I think you should be gentle with me.
You gonna kill me?
You know that a con artist works well in the story when you can't imagine them doing it any other way.
You handed me and my crew over to those that would kill us. That buys you nothing.
I made you dinner.
Such a character seems to be doing her job and using her talents in the most logical and realistic way that can be expected of her.
You're assuming the payoff is the point.
I'm not assuming anything at this juncture.
Mrs. Reynolds, like virtually every villain in this series, is not a character to be laughed off. She actually seems to exist as a person instead of as a type.
You're quite a man, Malcolm Reynolds. I've been waiting a long time for someone good enough to take me down.
Saffron, you even think about playing me again, I will riddle you with holes.
Everybody plays each other. That's all anybody ever does. We play parts.
You got all kinds of learning and you made me look the fool without trying, and yet here I am with a gun to your head. That's because I got people with me. People who trust each other, who do for each other, and ain't always looking for the advantage.
Promise me you're gonna kill me soon.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the episode. It shows that the story is not just about defeating the villains, but it is also about getting a straight answer out of someone who likes to dodge serious questions. This scene is also another great example of sweet revenge coming from the fist of Malcolm Reynolds.
I got one question for you. Just one thing I'd like to know straight up.
Revenge is a bit too cliché for Firefly, but it is on occasion hilarious. There is an old Hollywood adage, show it, don't say it. Malcolm keeps that spirit in this scene.
You don't live light anyhow.
This scene is well written. It's simple. It's not trying to impress us with creative plot twists. It just ends the story with a conversation between people who will not resolve their differences here.